Hello, everyone. I am Paul here on behalf of Cantina. Welcome to the session 2 of today's Build on Base series, and thank you to the Build on Base team for having us. Today's session is Stay Safe on Base, Security Basics for Everyday User. So whether you're like bridging assets, signing transactions, or just exploring new dApps, staying secure is super critical, and small mistakes can have big consequences. Leading this session is Noah, Cantina security lead researcher. He'll walk you through the top risks users face, how to understand what you're actually approving, and the tools and habits that keep your wallet safe. You live with a clear, practical framework for interacting securely on Base. By the end of this session, we are going to have an open Q&A, so please leave your questions in the comment section here. So with that in mind, I think also like Simon wants to have a quick disclaimer. Simon.
Thank you, everyone. GMBM. I appreciate you, Paul and Noah, for coming with us this morning to share some security fundamentals for users on Base. But before fully diving in and sharing a quick disclaimer, today's conversation is for informational education purposes only. It does not constitute investment or legal advice. The views expressed are our own and do not represent Base or Coinbase. Nothing shared should be considered an endorsement by us, Base or Coinbase. And that's all from my side. I'm going to hop on the stage and pass it back over to y'all. Thanks, Sim.
Thank you very much, Simon. Noah, you have the full lead here. Thank you.
Sounds great. Are you able to do the screen share?
Yep, one second.
Yep. Awesome. So hi, everyone. I'm Noah Marconi. Some quick background on myself before I get into it. Have about a decade of experience in a different industry before I got into crypto in 2017. In 2017, I did the cliche, quit your job, jump into crypto full time, and work in the industry, and I have not looked back. Primarily focused on all things EVM, both on the development side as a user and of course on the security side. In and around 2022, I joined Spearbit as a lead security researcher. In the interim, I actually got to work with the core team, which was super cool to work with them more hands-on behind the scenes. And now I'm back to largely doing lead security work. So I conduct security reviews with other talented security researchers. And in between, I do a little bit of development as well. So with that backdrop, what I'm going to talk to you about today, I've been invited to talk about staying safe on Base, security basics for everyday users, which is a little bit different than the security audits and security reviews that we do. This is more, user-facing, the things that you could step into, the pitfalls and things to watch out for. So with the outline, just to give you a heads up of what we're going to talk about before we talk about it, I'll start with a little bit of context into why this matters in the first place. And then I'll go into very specifics. I'll try to bring out mostly case studies, things that are known to have occurred, public in nature, and try to provide links if you want to look at specific examples. Talk a little bit about transaction signing and safety, and then at the end, I have a grab bag of tips that I'm gonna share as well. And like the disclaimer said, these tips are to help you be safer. Following one or some or all of these tips alone don't guarantee any form of safety, but they certainly do assist in crossing off some risks. So to start, let's instill some fear. There's a couple of case studies that I love talking about. This first one is with Celsius, where there was a $120 million Badger DAO hack. And I don't know how much money you guys make, but 120 million is life-changing amounts of money. I could only dream of having that, let alone losing that amount of money. It must be devastating. And what's interesting about this is not so much just the size or the parties involved. Celsius was a major crypto lender, and they were in the news a couple of years after this for other reasons. But it's how the exploit occurred. What occurred, most of the crypto hacks you hear about are smart contract vulnerabilities. There was a flaw in the smart contract logic and somebody happened to exploit it. This was a Cloudflare exploit that allowed an attacker to put malicious code onto the Badger DAO front end. So when you show up to use the Badger DAO front end during this hack, you'd see what looks like their website, but it's a website controlled by the attacker, and they could slip in malicious code. What made it even more interesting is that the attacker toggled the attack on and off. So depending on the time of day, the exploit would be present, and then they turn it off and it would be the stock standard Badger DAO website. So if you were spot checking, doing periodic monitoring, making sure the site is behaving as it should behave, you'd never notice. And this went undetected for at least a month or two before Celsius shows up and tries to execute a simple claim yield type transaction and accidentally signed off on a malicious payload that signed all of the holdings of the wallet over to the attacker. As soon as that giant, 60, 70, multiple tens of millions of dollars was signed over to the attacker, they pulled the plug. So they drained Celsius wholesale, and then all the signed approvals, they also drained. To note, Celsius is making the headlines, but there were tons of run-of-the-mill average everyday users who also fell victim to this attack. Another major one hit the news this year, and looking at the dates, this article is April. This occurred, I think, February, it notes. The safe.global website UI was compromised and ended up in about a $1.5 billion Bybit hack. In that funds, $1.5 billion of funds were stolen from Bybit and given away to an attacker. This was the largest event in history, largest cryptocurrency heist in history. And again, what made this quite interesting and relevant to this discussion is that it wasn't a smart contract vulnerability. They had a multi-sig, so it wasn't a rogue employee type incident. And it wasn't even a Bybit compromise. Bybit was perfectly safe and had some sound practices. They might have even had hardware wallets involved in their signing procedure, but they were making use of, again, a compromised website. So a little bit of detail of what went on behind the scenes. The safe.global UI was compromised. So what Bybit thought they were signing, what was presented on the website, was not what they were actually signing when it came time to have their wallet sign off on something. How the website was compromised is also quite interesting. It was a spear phishing attack. And if you're not familiar with the term, it's where they target specific individuals with a phishing campaign to appear to be something other than an attacker trying to get you to execute malicious code. And in this case, there was, I believe, a DevOps engineer or an engineer involved in DevOps was talking to an outside group who asked for some help debugging some Docker-related containers or project, and they convinced them that his expertise was perfectly relevant. He can lend a hand. And in our industry, open source matters quite a bit. So you find this is not uncommon for developers at any one of these companies to be assisting in some public open source project. But what ended up happening is there were malicious payloads that were given to the engineer. And over and above the malicious payloads, when they tried to run something and it failed, the attackers coached them through modifying their system settings or their environment settings to allow malicious behavior that was previously prevented. And then, yeah, just to emphasize, B as in billion. So I'm not sure if people on the call come from large or small companies, but I've worked for a lot of companies over the years, and only one of them has been worth $1 billion. Most of the companies aren't even worth that amount of money if you took all of the shares and sold them all at once. $1.5 billion loss is mind-boggling in size. So the reason for, just to jump in there, I've done these types of podcasts before. If you want to hear, I just talked a little bit about the front end and how it operated, but the on-chain activity and what actually occurred with the transaction, I did a talk with Hari. If you guys want to check that out, also available on X or Twitter. So the reason I want to instill a little bit of fear is because the methods, the approaches, the techniques, and the people behind these attacks, they're the same people targeting everyday users like me and you. Although the great massive headlines are few and far between, because it takes a lot of time to trick a multi-billion-dollar company or compromise two organizations at once to be able to pull off some of these attacks. Every day, on a smaller scale, users like you and me are falling victim to some of these same techniques. So I'll run through some of the more common ones as a bit of an awareness campaign, making you aware of them. Once you're aware, it's a lot easier to not misstep, or at least to be suspicious in the right way. So some common attempts. Emails broadly are generally out to get you. And I mentioned I've been in this industry since 2017, and 2017 onward, I've just disregarded my inbox. Maybe it's nice to read some headlines, but if somebody's sending me a link in my inbox, it's safe to assume that I should not be clicking on it. This is one I get quite commonly. My email's been leaked several times over. MetaMask support. There's a sense of urgency. They need to secure my wallet because they know that my wallet has been compromised. And if I click this link and upload my private key, then everything will be fine. But it's actually not MetaMask. It's an attacker trying to convince me to upload my private key. Tweets, quite similarly, are universally out to get you. Curve Finance, I think this was like a week ago. Curve Finance was their X account was compromised, and the attacker decided to tweet a malicious airdrop link. So a lot of people see these, they're time sensitive, they want to jump in and they click right away, and they're brought to a site with either malicious payloads, asking them for their private key, or asking them to sign a nefarious message or transaction. Text messages, quite similarly. This one's not mine, but I cleared out my spam folder. I get a ton of these all the time. Some of them aren't even crypto related, but if you're getting text messages, they're probably nefarious. Especially if you get a link, Amazon shipping, DHL shipping, any of the providers, any of the phone carriers, they're not texting you with a link to help you with your account. It's an attacker trying to kick off an attack. Likewise, sliding into your DMs regardless of the platform, text or not. This one was kind of interesting. So this is me now. This is one of my screenshots. Somebody reached out to me because the Spearbit affiliation, they thought I was attending in an event in Denver, and I never talked to this person before. Regardless, I took a screenshot and I sent it over to the team at Spearbit, and they said the username doesn't line up. This is clearly an attacker pretending to be somebody else. And what's extra interesting about this is I have premium Telegram, so only paid subscribers can try to contact me. So the attackers are, they busted out their credit card and they're paying for premium subscription services so that they can put these attacks forward. Commonly, as you can see in this message, North Korea is behind a lot of these attacks. So, almost humorously, if you ask them to disparage the North Korean leader, they bail. And that's exactly what happened here. I didn't even ask them to disparage. I just asked what's their opinion on North Korean leadership. And they said, don't worry about it. We're already connected. So emails, tweets, texts, DMs, and mysterious packages showing up at your door. This is one I saw. I think I just saw it yesterday, just as I had already finished the slides, so I threw this one in as well. There's two versions of this. This one was random in that the package just showed up. A branded package had a ledger in it. And if you click on this link and read through the tweet thread, what the attacker did is they quite literally took the ledger case and they put in a malicious circuit board. So it's not even a ledger anymore. It just looks like a ledger. And when you make use of it, the attacker has access to your information, which is wild and crazy. There's an older version of this one that happened ages ago where people would sell on like eBay or Amazon. There's a delay getting ledgers from Ledger. You had to wait, but you could get it overnight if you get one off Amazon. But the one off Amazon had a little yellow piece of paper in it where the attacker was kind enough to write down the seed phrase, which is the seed phrase that they have access to. So if you load that into your ledger, you're now using a seed phrase that the attacker has access to. So be wary of packages and be wary of purchasing hardware-related products from anyone but the vendor themselves. So with those common techniques that are used to compromise people's accounts and get them to sign nefarious things or download something that's going to give away access to your machine, there's some general tips that you can try to keep in mind. Just never click links. And I know this based in Cantina. Sorry, guys. I know you guys have a marketing department. Marketing might have been who invited me to do this talk, but if marketing ever sends you anything, just don't click it. You can read it maybe, but don't click the link. What you'd want to do instead, so you can't never interact with things online. But if you're being directed to the Coinbase website, just bookmark the Coinbase website. And when you read a link from, read a newsletter or a message from Coinbase, separately open your browser up and then go to your bookmarked Coinbase address. That way, even if it was an attacker, you didn't click their links. You weren't brought to the fake website. You navigated to the original one. Never open files. So if somebody sends you text, email, otherwise, or strange boxes, never open the files. And in our industry, we have a bit of a problem with that because security research and security reviews are such a big deal. Most protocols are going to circulate a PDF saying, we've been audited by some of the best. Here's a report. It's in PDF format. We'd like you to open it. But over the years, that's a lot of what attackers have done as well. They've said, here's an interesting document. You should open it. One way to get around it is to maybe make use of Google Drive. If somebody's sending you a pitch deck, ask them not to send you the file, just send you a link to Google Drive or something other than that. And if you're an enterprise operation, there's some really interesting tools that you can use where documents are loaded remotely into an ephemeral temporary server that even if compromised, it's sandboxed. So it's alive just for the life of reading the document, and then it's killed afterwards. Also, never talk to strangers on the internet. Oh, jumped ahead a little bit there. Yeah, never talk to strangers on the internet. It's an odd thing we do now. We do it quite a bit, but I'm a little older. You can see some gray hair. When I first got access to the internet, I was read the riot act of don't talk to anyone, don't tell them your name, don't give them any information about yourself. But we do that a little freely now, and that gives arms attackers with a little bit more context and information to attempt to spearfish and compromise you. Broadly, just be skeptical, rely on your own bookmarks, and always buy from the manufacturer. Even if you think you're getting a deal going through Amazon for something like a hardware wallet, yeah, don't do it. Also, be cautious joining podcasts, which is kind of funny because I received an invite on Discord to join this podcast. Luckily, I was able to verify who was reaching out to me, but it's not uncommon in our industry to have attackers pretend to be hosting a podcast and wanting you to join. And this message here, again, this was sent to me. So it's not hypothetical and it's not something uncommon. Somebody from Dragonfly reached out to me, or who I thought was from Dragonfly, because their Twitter username was posted on the Dragonfly website. What had happened though is the individual had updated their handle or username on Twitter, and updating it gave them control of the new one, but then left the old one up for grabs. An attacker took it and then immediately noticed that the website, the Dragonfly website, has not been updated. And they reached out to a ton of people and said, join my podcast. if you want to verify, check the website. This Twitter handle appears on the website. And in this one, the conversation didn't go far enough for me to be offered a link. But I had talked to others operating a similar attack. They were trying to reach out to me on Twitter as well. And there's different variations of it, but this one was a VC fund, or posing as a VC fund, who had a portfolio project that they wanted me to help with. And doing security research and development work sounded relevant and related to my source of income. So I talked to them briefly in the DMs, and they said, we're going to set up a call, but we're going to do the call on software from one of my portfolio companies. And they said, it's one of our portfolio companies. It's kind of a deal breaker. We'll never use Zoom. We'll never use Google Meet. We'll never use anything else. And what they were trying to get me to do was click a link and then install something malicious. So, my spidey senses were tingling when I opened the message in the first place. When they said, this is a hard line, we're never going to use anything other than this mystery software. At that point, I ended the conversation. It didn't continue. But watch out for that one. It's a common one, and it goes around. As you can see here, there's another link talking about doing it. Some of them use a variation where they're downloading a fake Zoom client, which will have malicious payloads, or just using Zoom itself. They'll try to sneak in partway through the call a request for permissions that give access to your machine. And once they have access, they install everything they need, and all bets are off. And to really show you how prolific this is, it's everywhere. You can do some searches. Happens to Web 2, happens to government. There are attackers impersonating VCs. So if you're raising funds, watch out for VCs. Colleagues, there was somebody who joined a lot of the security researcher channels who started blogging and tweeting about relevant topics and striking up conversations on technical things, trying to gain a little bit of trust and credibility before they would then try to get peers within the community to install malicious payloads. Job hunters, and if you are a job hunter, the other side, attackers masquerading as employers, marketers, and more. So be wary all around. Now I'm giving you a nice clean language and terminology, but if you want the unfiltered version, Tay, who's from My Ether Wallet, then My Crypto, and now works for Consensus over at MetaMask, has seen some things and has seen user-facing issues where users are compromised and they go to the wallet support to say, what can you do to help? She's seen it all. Not a terrible person to follow at all. Actually, I'd highly recommend it. You can see some unfiltered raw reactions to some of these attack patterns. And when a new one pops up, she tends to tweet about it as well. This one here, like I mentioned on the previous slide, not only are they applying for jobs, but they're actually getting the jobs. So some protocols have accidentally over the years hired an attacker who then from the inside just pushed malicious code to a GitHub and was able to attack the company that way. So some tips and advice: just never install anything. Broadly, actually, I worked for an IT department, or a company that had an IT department who wouldn't let me install anything. They were super secure, but the employees were super not very productive due to that particular policy. Maybe to relax that advice a little bit is, if somebody sends you a link to install something, never click a link to install something. It's probably nefarious. Be super cautious. If Zoom is asking for permissions, people shouldn't in a Zoom call have access to control your screen or your computer. And then with the documents, again, you don't open them. Do it on a remote. Have them uploaded to somewhere for you to view in your browser. And broadly, just adopt a skeptical standpoint. If somebody's reaching out to you with a nice offer, it's probably a reason. Things are too good to be true. Yeah, my slides got a little out of order, so yeah, be patient with me. I'm from the 1900s, but back in the 1900s, we did not talk to strangers on the internet. Broadly, leaks do happen. Data leaks do happen. So if you're in this industry as a user, or if you're employed within this industry, just assume your data is already leaked. And if you're operating under that assumption, you're probably going to be a little bit more cautious. Most of the people reaching out to you are probably attackers rather than somebody who saw your resume. And I've been in this industry for, 7-8 years now, if we're adding it all up. Very rarely does somebody genuine reach out to me because they like my work history. It's almost universally someone nefarious trying to compromise my machine. Quotable moment, if you guys want to throw that one up. Here's another one that's really interesting and worth knowing about. One of the clients I work for, I was helping T.XYZ work on a project, and they flagged this one for me. They're aware of it, and they just wanted a second opinion to make sure that what's going on is what we had talked about. But if you take a look at this is Etherscan transaction history. Just a quick screen grab of some token transfers in and out of a wallet. And you can see them flagged differently with some red over here down and some grayed out ones. And to talk through what these are, the grayed out ones are zero value transfers. So some tokens allow you to mock token transfers if there's zero value. It doesn't check who the sender is, or it doesn't check the amount if you're trying to execute some transactions out of a wallet, as long as there's zero value. But what they're doing here is, if you look at when it occurred, this is going from the account that we're talking about to 0xE37D. And the one just before it is 0xE37D, the first few letters. But if you keep reading, the one above has 51B3 and this one has A2DO, and they both end in the same numbers, 4ECA. So what the attacker is trying to do is they literally mined this address to look like the destination address. Just the top and tail, so they could do it relatively quickly. And what they're hoping is that when you send a small amount of funds out, in this case, it was $10, not a big amount, especially given the size of some of these accounts. They immediately fast follow with another transaction with a similar one, hoping that when you go back to do the real transaction, which did occur up here, it's a $3,000 transaction. When you go to do the real one, instead of relying on your address book or copy pasting from a safe source, you'll copy paste from the transaction history. And this log here is littered with it. And if you look at any large account without going funds, you'll see this attack playing out over and over again. Here as well, when it occurred, the token was not flagged as malicious, and it literally said USDC instead of ERC20 token. Etherscan's really good at getting these flagged. But what happened is there was a real transaction that went out for 95,000 and change. And then shortly after, there was a fake one that went out for a fake token that looked like USDC. So if you ever wanted to pay them again, they're hoping you copy and paste from here. This was cool when it first started to come out. I asked around a little bit. I was like, this is a pattern I'm starting to see in a lot of places. What do you call it? How do I tell people about it? And it's got a super cool name. It's an address poisoning attack, would be the one to watch out for. But the takeaway is basically be wary of your transaction history logs. If there's things that you don't recognize that you didn't do, it's probably this flavor of things. But also when you're trying to send funds to the same person again, don't use the Etherscan transaction history log or other transaction history logs that are showing every little transaction. Use your dedicated address book. And that way you can avoid falling victim to address poisoning attacks. Yeah, and always check the full address. What the attacker is banking on is that you're in a rush. You've already sent a test transaction, so you're just going to skim the front and skim the back and proceed. So the last thing I wanted to talk about is signing. And quite literally, this is a mock-up here from the Red Guild has the phishing dojo. I recommend everyone go to kind of test yourself and learn and be trained how to spot these types of attacks. But the Celsius scenario was the website was compromised and it presented them with a transaction that would approve a token transfer rather than a transaction that would do the small thing they wanted to do, is just claim the yield. So breaking this down a little bit, I won't show you in great detail, but these transaction details are doing a max approve. All those Fs are a maximum amount. This selector here is the approve. That's the little decoding on what this is. And the address here is the attacker's address. Another variation of this is when you're signing, you can be asked to sign some data that will give a spender some amount of some token. The Bybit scenario was similar, so similar in nature, but different in that it was a multi-sig. So you wouldn't necessarily use your wallet, your Coinbase wallet or other wallet to defend against the multi-sig attack. OpenZeppelin has some tools available. If you're using a multi-sig, you might want to look at the more technical solutions. There's also a command line tool that you can use to verify what you're seeing on the website matches what you're seeing elsewhere. But broadly, when you're signing something, never rush. If someone's rushing you, they're probably rushing you for nefarious reasons to make you drop your guard. And also don't assume small amounts are going to be safer. The Bybit example is a perfect example of that. The Bybit transaction, I don't actually know what they were trying to sign, but what they did sign was an account takeover transaction. So even if they were intending to send $1, what they signed gave the attacker access to their entire account. So the value of what you're intending to do isn't necessarily what's at risk. It's the value held in the account you're playing with. Always confirm what the transaction is doing. And if you're not clear on that, it's these sorts of things. If you're using MetaMask, this is a mock-up to look similar to MetaMask, but there's other wallets that will show you similar things. If you're unclear on what it's doing, maybe spend some time with the Phishing Dojo. Click this link here in the PowerPoint and test yourself and learn how to check these types of things to be aware of in great detail what the transaction is doing. And how and wherever you can verify that the sites you're using are genuine. To be honest, with the Badger DAO and the Gnosis Safe, they went to the right place, but they were presented with a malicious site. Yeah, so just before we go into a final round of tips, I had some high-level tips at the end, but Paul, are there any questions just from the audience that we could cover?
Yes, we have some, just a few. I mean, a few that are super worth exploring. So if you'd like, we can.
Are you able to type it in if I can't hear you?
Can you hear me?
Oh, we lost Paul. Oh.
No.
I'll keep an eye out. Paul, if you just drop it in the chat, I can read through. Some general tips, and this is a pretty fun one actually. If you are talking about is my crypto safe? Are my funds safe? And you have them in a wallet on a phone, and the phone is worth more than the funds, that's probably an acceptable amount of risk. You could lose your phone could break, and that's worth more than the amount of funds you have in the mobile-based wallet. But if you have so much crypto that it's worth like 10 phones or something crazy like that, you probably don't want to put it all on one phone or one device. Maybe Coinbase actually offers custody solutions if you're talking about tons of money, multi-million-dollar raises and that sort of thing. There's multi-sig options. There's also hot and cold storage. But the general advice is, scale what you do to safeguard your funds with the amount of funds you have. If I only have $100, realistically, putting that on my phone is not such a big deal. My phone, I don't have insurance on it, so a new iPhone is going to cost a little bit more than the $100 of crypto that I have. Another good bit of advice is, having heard all the ways that attackers try to compromise people's machines, one thing you can try to do is have a front office and back office. And this is not in the accounting sense, so this is repurposing some of the terminology. But if you think of front office as your day-to-day, you do your email, you chat with people, you have messengers, you join podcasts, you do that on one device. And if you misstep through the deluge of people contacting you, trying to get you to trip up, and your device is compromised, do your crypto transactions on a different device. And refer to that as your back office. If you have a dedicated separate machine for those purposes. Even if your main machine is compromised, your other one is untouched and should be immune to those sorts of things. Use a hardware wallet if you're dealing with significant funds, or if you're working for a company. And wherever possible, use multi-factor authentication. Unfortunately, I don't have a ton of detail about the latest and greatest coming out of Coinbase, but to be honest, Coinbase and Base on both fronts are leaders on those particular topics. There's some really cool things they're doing with wallets, and there's really cool things they're doing with session keys, software-based wallets, and smart account-based wallets, not to mention the Coinbase account level security as well. So there's some really cool things there. But if Coinbase is offering you MFA, multi-factor authentication, yeah, definitely make use of it. So the question, Paul just typed it up. Do I believe similar attacks as the Bybit one will take place? If yes, why? Yeah, definitely. It's 100% going to take place again. Part of the reason why I say that is not too long before the Bybit attack occurred, it happened to somebody else. I'm drawing a blank on the project name, but it was like within the month or within the quarter, where it just happened to somebody else. And then it happened again. The one good thing about the Bybit attack is talking to some of my clients. I always say these things are possible. You have to watch out for these wild and crazy things. But at the end of the day, I sound like I'm talking about something hypothetical, but now I get to say, you guys all remember Bybit, it just happened. Here's how it happened, and here's how they will defend against it in the future, and how you can defend against it as well. But yeah, somebody's going to fall victim to similar things again. It's just a matter of time. People get lazy. Things work safely a dozen times over. You get a little complacent and you stop being so strict with the verifications. Or they just don't know. They don't know how to safeguard and protect themselves. Another question that popped up is, do we think AI will play a big role in these types of scams in the future? Yes, and today, actually. It's super crazy, actually. I wish I had more time, because there's only so many case studies I can show you. But there was a case where there was a North Korean who was using like real-time deep fake video conferencing to apply for a job somewhere. And like the look didn't match the regional accent and dialect the person was using. But it looked like somebody completely different. They're also using, instant translation. They're using search tools when you ask them contextual questions. I should have a link somewhere if you want to check out. Earlier, there was one of the articles, Kraken actually detected very early on in the interview process, like super early, that an attacker is trying to infiltrate the interview process. So they sandboxed them and isolated them, and then had them run through the whole interview process. And they poked them in different ways and saw how, the facade fell apart. Yeah, if you get a chance and want to look more there, definitely check out the Kraken write-up. But right now, today, AI is being used in some of these scams. It's going to be used even more if you think of my CEO calling me urgently, and it's exactly his voice, and if I FaceTime, it's going to look just like him. There's going to be AI attacks where it's my CEO saying, I need you to sign off on something and send me a whole bunch of money because I'm at a conference and it's important. When it's not him, it's an attacker that's using his name and likeness and voice to make it sound like it's him. So another thing you can do, yeah, definitely, I had it on the screen for a while, but go to the phishing dojo. It's super cool. I've done it myself. I tell all my clients to do it. I'll probably do it periodically again. Being overconfident is probably riskier than being unsure of your detection capabilities. But just know, if you detect that something is malicious, it's probably malicious. But if you don't recognize it as being malicious, there's never an all safe. So just remember, if you read through and you check and you're like, is it probably safe? There's still no level of certainty that it is. Also, Tay again has written up something. I believe this was published when she was with My Crypto, but it's something I try to read myself on an annual basis, and I recommend a lot of individuals and teams and projects take a look at this one as well. Yeah, so a bit of a joke here. Don't actually click here. If you're walking away with one lesson at all from this talk is just don't click on things. But yeah, if there's any additional questions before we close out, I'd be happy to answer them.
Can you hear me, Noah?
Cool. So it looks like I can't hear you, Paul. Sorry. I think you're currently on mute.
Simone, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you on my side.
Yeah, maybe it's my side. I can't hear you. Oh, try now. Maybe I can hear you now.
Now, can you hear me?
Awesome. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
It switched at some point, and it went off my speakers, but I can hear you.
Okay. I was saying that I think we can wrap it up for now, and just wanted to thank you very much, Noah, for jumping into this case and showing so many amazing examples on how we can stay safe. As we know, as we all know, security is an everyday practice, not one-time fix. You know, the more you understand how things can go wrong, the better equipped you are to stay safe, and this is for everyone, included us. Big thanks again to Noah for the insights and to the Build on Base team for having us today. But don't worry, we'll be back soon with another session, and this time focused on advanced security concepts for builders on base. More details will be available soon, and we are going to share some announcements on this with a fixed date and time. So until then, stay sharp and see you in the next session. And in the meantime, Noah, if you want to have the last word.
Awesome. Yeah, nothing more to share to the audience. Just a thank you to the host. I appreciate the invite, and I actually look forward to listening in to the other talks that you have upcoming. Super cool initiative.
Thank you very much, everyone, and see you next time.
I was thinking about very informational stuff going today. I definitely took down some notes, and I'm sure the community learned a lot as well. Really do appreciate your time.
Awesome. Well, enjoy the rest of your day.
Cheers. Likewise. Thank you all.